On today's American Football Stories episode, we'll look ahead to this weekend's games and give our gambling advice for select college football matchups. American Football Stories is brought to you by Coach Paint. Coach Paint is a great tool that allows us to add graphics to player highlights, similar to the graphics you'll see on TV. Coach Paint offers the ability to clearly illustrate video while increasing retention of information in a shorter amount of time. Up your game with Coach Paint today.
What time is it? Game time! It's gonna be special. They're gonna talk about this forever.
Welcome to American Football Stories.
Puts his head down, crashes and spins, and dives. Touchdown!
Bringing together the many perspectives that make up college football in the NFL.
Football is one of the greatest sports ever invented.
From players and coaches.
Believe, baby, believe, baby.
Hey, we playing to win right here, fellas.
To the front office and scouts.
The public is finally beginning to catch up, but they don't even know half the truth.
Us against the world, let's get it.
Your hosts, Robert Parker and Nick Knudsen, bring you American Football Stories.
Welcome to the American Football Stories podcast brought to you by Coach Paint. Today is October 7th, 2020. I'm your host, Nick Knudsen. My co-host, Robert Parker III, is out this week. He'll be back next week. So we got a solo pod for tonight, and it might go a little quicker. So we shall see, as Robert likes to say. Although he did send in his picks, so I will be reading off his picks for us here. All right, so let's jump in the college football schedule. Hey, on top of a worldwide pandemic that's still going on, that the 2020 season is playing through, we got a hurricane in the Gulf this week, so it's affecting some of the schedules. We'll cover those games, but in terms of COVID, the only game that's canceled this week, UAB versus Rice, postponed. I'm sure things will change as it goes. Thursday night, Tulane plays at Houston. The Cougars finally get to take the field at 7:30 on ESPN. Friday night, Louisville goes to Georgia Tech, 7 o'clock, ESPN. The Jackets try to bounce back from that disappointing showing at Syracuse. Louisville tries to bounce back after a couple of close losses. Well, not so close to Miami, but a couple of losses anyway. All right, let's move on to Saturday. We got the noon time slot. Florida goes to Kyle Field, takes the Kyle show to Kyle Field. Plays Texas A&M Aggies at noon on ESPN. Florida's a 7-point favorite in this one. Minus 250 on the money line. And the over is at, the total is at 57. A&M's coming off ugly loss to Bama. Not a great performance to start against Vandy either. Whereas Florida is rolling in behind the arm of Kyle Trask, who's thrown for 684 yards and 10 touchdowns through 2 games. For comparison's sake, A&M senior quarterback Kellen Mond, he's thrown for a total of 318 yards in 2 games, 3 touchdowns for the Aggies through the air. And look, I mean, this game should be a tough trip on Florida's schedule. It should be. And I say should because I don't think it will be. I'm not seeing it here. I think the Gators cover this easy. And I think we're looking at the over at 57 is also looking pretty good. So this might be a parlay here. Florida -7, covering the 7. Maybe you buy that half point. Florida -7 with the over at 57. Robert weighed in on the game. He said, I think Florida is very comfortable playing in the noon time slot. Kyle Trask, Kyle Pitts will hook up for at least one score. But this is a game where Mullen will have to lean on the running game. Jimbo needs this one, so I think he will get the team ready. But ultimately, Florida gets to win. Gators on the money line, so he sees it a little closer than I do because I think this A&M team, I'm very disappointed with the show at Alabama still last week. I was pretty tough on them in our post-game podcast on Sunday, and I'm going to keep that position. They got to prove it to me, but luckily for the Aggies, they do get the opportunity to prove it here against the Gators, so we'll see how it goes. All right, moving on. Let's stay in the noon time slot. We'll jump over to the ACC. The number 8 North Carolina Tar Heels taking on the number 19 Virginia Tech Hokies. North Carolina is a 4.5-point favorite, -190 on the money line. The over-under is set at 59. The total's at 59. Both programs are where they want to be record-wise. They're sitting at 2-0, but they haven't been playing consistently. So North Carolina is playing back-to-back for the first time this season. I think I think Virginia Tech, they're coming off a tight game against Duke last week, although Duke kind of scored late to make it tighter than it was. I say tight because Virginia Tech didn't end up covering, which I picked them to cover, and I wasn't happy with. But yeah, Carolina went on the road to Boston College. They played a tough game with the Eagles. They got away with a 4-point victory too. Last year, these two teams they played, it was a 5 overtime game. 5 overtime game where Virginia Tech ended up winning 43-41. We're not sure who's going to play quarterback for the Hokies this week. Hendon Hooker, he's good quarterback last year for the Hokies toward the end of the season. There's been a lot of players at Virginia Tech who have missed due to COVID-19. He's been one of them. So Baxter Burmeister's filled in. Hasn't been playing great, but good enough to have the Hokies performing well. Sam Howell, not an awesome start, but first game jitters against Syracuse. Boston College might be a scrappy team. We're not sure about them just yet. I'm not sure he's going to light the Hokies up either. We'll see how this game goes in general. I don't really have a ton of confidence in North Carolina in this game, so I definitely don't want to give Tech any points. The total at 59 seems a little high to me, so I'm just going to take North Carolina on the money line here and go with the Tar Heels. Robert chimed in. He said, since Justin Fuente took over the head coaching job at Virginia Tech, the Hokies are 4-0 against North Carolina. However, that winning streak will come to an end this week with Sam Howell on the offense having a big game. I'm rolling with Mac Brown, the Tar Heels on the money line. So he also doesn't want to give Virginia Tech any points there. So we both like North Carolina on the money line. I like this Tar Heels team. I think they're playing they'll play some good football going forward. All right, we have another game here at noon that was just freshly moved to the time slot. I alluded to the hurricane affecting schedules this week. This was originally scheduled to be a night game in Death Valley, but the LSU Tigers will make their first trip to Faurot Field. They'll go up to Missouri. The game's been moved up to Columbia, Missouri from Baton Rouge. It originally slated to take place at 8 p.m. in Baton Rouge. It will now take place at 11 a.m. in Columbia. This is the first time, like I said, first time they've gone to Missouri since they've joined the SEC. LSU, it's first trip up there, but it doesn't really matter. Missouri's rebuilding. They're struggling on the offensive side of the football right now. I don't think it's going to affect the game much. LSU bounced back nicely last week. They took care of Vandy the way you expect someone to take care of Vandy. I still think that they got a good team. I just think that Mississippi State was a nightmare matchup in week 1. And I don't think they handled it very well. So I think the Tigers are still a pretty solid ball club here. I think they're going to go up to Mizzou. They're going to take care of business. I don't really worry about the change of venues because 2020 has been nothing but a distraction. So every college football team is used to things changing at the last minute. This isn't really, it's just more of 2020 being itself. So instead of dealing with coronavirus, you're dealing with hurricanes. Folks in Louisiana deal with that stuff every year. I don't really worry about it affecting LSU too much. They go up to Missouri. They take care of business in this one. LSU is a 14-point favorite, minus 600 on the money line. The total is at 54. I don't care about the 2 touchdowns. I just don't with this one. Missouri, they kind of showed me who they were last week at Tennessee. Bama's tough to judge anybody against Bama, but I expected Missouri to play a little better than they did up at Tennessee last week. Didn't get it done. So the thing I would say too to keep in mind, LSU has to win out if they have any chance of winning the SEC. And I know it's a long shot thinking about that after week 1, but crazier things have happened. And they definitely need to use this game as a ramp-up game to build their confidence going into Gainesville next week because the Bayou Bengals are traveling to play the Gators in a week's time, and they want to clean up all those errors they made in week 1 and get the ship righted headed in Gainesville next week. So I'm going to say the Bayou Bengals win big, but they'll pull away in the second half. I think it'll be a little close in the first half, but they won't mess around. They'll put this game away in the fourth quarter. LSU covers the 14, no problem. All right, let's move over to the Big 12. The Texas Longhorns playing the Oklahoma Sooners in the Red River rivalry. It's going to be noon on Fox. Same place, same time. This game, we're used to seeing this around this time of year. Difference is this time, you got Oklahoma coming into the game unranked after a loss against Iowa State last week. It's going to be at 25% capacity. They're still playing at the Cotton Bowl. Texas State Fair has been canceled for quite a while. So it'll be empty and quiet out there instead of an entire state fair going on. There's usually, just for a record of how big this is, there's usually between 250,000 to 300,000 people around this event while it's going on. So this is going to feel really weird and really empty, but the emptiness inside is something that you might be used to by now if you're a Texas Longhorns fan, because you can't quite ever believe in what you see. I don't trust Texas. I'm going to go out there and say, I like Tom Herman. I like Texas. I just don't trust them. They're hard to pick. That being said, they fumbled on the 1 yard line against TCU. And if they punch it in the end zone at the end of the game they're 3-0. You're 1 yard away from being 3-0. And, of course, they had the big comeback. I think it was a 15-point comeback late against Texas Tech that, they could easily be 1-2 right now. But tell me with a straight face that if they finish off that game against TCU last week, they end up punching it in the end zone with a clutch drive at the end to win the game, that Texas would be a 2.5-point underdog against Oklahoma coming off a loss to Iowa State right now. Tell me that would be the case, because I don't think so. I think you'd see Texas somewhere around a 6 or 7 point favorite in this one. So I don't trust Texas, but I'm going to pick them with the points here. In all honesty, I might go with whoever had the points in this game, but I think Texas showed me enough against TCU. I think TCU is a good team. I like Spencer Rattler. I love the OU offense, but I don't trust the defense. The Oklahoma defense is weak right now. They're getting torn up. Kansas State and Iowa State, got to be frustrating to watch if you're a Sooners fan there. So I think the Oklahoma defense needs some work. I'm not sure this is the week they figure it out. Herman also needs this bad. I don't trust Herman. I don't trust Texas. I will take the points, though. Robert weighs in. And by the way, Texas, you win this, you control your own destiny in the Big 12. So let's see what the Longhorns go out and prove. So Robert weighs in. He says both teams are coming into the Red rivalry with a loss, which might not be good for ratings. Oklahoma's coming in with 2 losses. Normally, Oklahoma would be a consensus pick to win this game, but with Spencer Rattler going through some growing pains and bad defensive play on both sides, I'm going to go with the under. I think both defenses come out with something to prove. I'm rolling with the under of 72. All right. So he's going the opposite direction I am there, because I don't believe in either one of these defenses right now, but particularly Oklahoma's. But I'm expecting a shootout in this one. Robert's going with the under in 72. It's certainly a big spread. It's certainly a big spread here. So you got, just to be clear, Texas is a 2.5-point underdog. Oklahoma's minus 135 on the money line, and the total was at 72 even. All righty. Let's go down. Let's finish off the noon games here. UL Monroe at Liberty on ESPNU. NC State goes to Virginia on the ACC Network. South Carolina at Vandy, 12 p.m. SEC Network. Got to get that one with Muschamp. Duke at Syracuse, 12:30 ESPN 3. The Citadel goes to Army, 1:30 p.m. CBS Sports Network. And at 3:30 on CBS, the number 14 Tennessee Volunteers travel between the hedges to Athens, Georgia, to face the Georgia Bulldogs on CBS. Tennessee in a big-time 3:30 CBS time slot. And it actually feels like they belong there. They've looked good the first 2 weeks. So I think if you're a Vols fan, you're feeling pretty good about the game. This is probably your most exciting game in some time, because you actually kind of feel like your team might have a chance. Now, Vegas doesn't think you have much of a chance, because Georgia is a 12-point favorite. They're minus 460 on the money line, and the over-under is set at 43. Maybe that opener against Arkansas wasn't as awful as we thought after we saw the Razorbacks upset Mississippi State last week. But who are we kidding? Yes, it was. It was. It was a pretty terrible performance in the first half. The second half, they got it together. They looked better, and they certainly looked fantastic last week against Bo Nix and the Auburn Tigers. The Dogs buried Auburn early. The offense looks so much improved behind the steady hand of Stetson Bennett. Really, since he stepped in the Arkansas game, it's been much improved. USC transfer JT Daniels is available, but if Bennett keeps this up, I think he keeps the gig. I mean, he's been playing well. I mean, Georgia plays as well as it did against Auburn. It's not even an insightful thing to say he'll keep his job. Of course he will, but it's a little surprising. The development's a little surprising in Georgia. Once again, the quarterback situation, that's a weird quarterback situation they've had all year up in Georgia. It's just, we've gone over it a couple times on this podcast. Jeremy Pruitt's third Tennessee team. He's inspired some preseason optimism, another good recruiting class up in Knoxville. Some saw the vault says really the progress they made last year. Some saw it as incredible progress toward the end of last season. And yes, I'll give it that Tennessee did improve, but I think the level to which they've improved might be a little bit overstated. Like, they have won 8 straight, and I think I heard ESPN say about 7 or 8 times on Saturday, the longest win streak in the SEC. That's great. Tennessee hasn't been there in a while. They'll take anything, but call me skeptical. I'm skeptical here. Exactly 0 of those 8 wins have been against ranked opponents. Okay. 4 of the 8 have come against South Carolina, Missouri, 2 against the Cox, 2 against the Tigers. The other 4, UAB, Kentucky, Vandy, Indiana. Not exactly murderer's row. Okay. Tennessee doesn't see itself among that mantle of football. They see themselves with the Florida Georgias and Bamas. But last year, when they play a ranked Florida, they lost 34-3. They played a ranked Georgia, 43-14. They play a ranked Alabama, 35-13. They're improving. I'll give Tennessee credit. They're definitely coming along. Jeremy Pruitt had a big rebuild on his hands. He's done great. If you're a Volunteers fan, you should be happy about where you're at. You're headed in a great direction too. I don't think they're ready for the next step in terms of a straight up upset, though. I'm willing to take a leap of faith, though, this week. And the team I watched take care of business against South Carolina, who we saw South Carolina play Florida a little scrappy at times last week, too. And then they turn around, they take care, they really take care of business. They beat the Missouri team that's down this year, and they beat them the way a good team should beat someone. Like, I think Tennessee can cover a 2-touchdown spread. Vols plus 12 here. I'm rolling with it. I like it. I think that they can do it. But there's part of me that feels a little haunted from the Texas A&M Alabama pick on the big spread last week. Maybe Georgia covers this easily. Who knows? But I'm going to go with my gut feeling on this one. Maybe I'm betting more with my heart than my brain here. But Vols plus 12 is my pick for the week. All right, let's see what Robert has to say about this game. Love the way the Vols are playing on offense, but once again, this Georgia defense is one of the best in the nation. I think Stetson Bennett's confidence is growing a little more each week, but the defense will be the reason the Bulldogs pull out the victory. I'm rolling with Georgia on the money line, so he doesn't want any part of that spread. I'll take the Vols with the points. He'll take the Dogs with the money line. All right. At 3:30, UTSA goes to BYU. BYU's been kind of rolling. Number 15 Cougars. Texas Tech goes to number 24 Iowa State. 3:30 ABC. You got Iowa State is minus 12.5 on spread, minus 450 on the money line, and the total's at 64.5. The Red Raiders, they battled 2 close losses this season, both to Texas and Kansas State, while Iowa State beats Oklahoma at home for the first time since 1960, just a few weeks after losing to the Raging Cajuns on the same field. I don't get it. I love those black Iowa State uniforms, by the way. Got to wear those more than once a season if you're the Cyclones. Iowa State, though, I'm going to put them in the Texas category of I don't trust them. I like Iowa State. They certainly make things interesting, but it seems like every time I pick them, they don't come through, and every time I pick against them, they beat me up. So Tech's a feisty team. They play well enough on the offensive side of the ball to score some points and stick around in this one, but I have enough concerns about the Red Raiders defensively that I think they won't come through with the upset. The Cyclones are still the better team. I like what Matt Wells is building in Lubbock. ISU ends up winning, but Tech covers 12.5. I'll take those 12.5 points all day with that Texas Tech offense. All right, Robert. Let's see what he has to say about it. He says, coming off a big win, can Matt Campbell and the Cyclones keep it up? I think they do in this one, but Texas Tech will show some resistance with the air raid. However, one rule of thumb I like to follow in picking games is that you always go with the better quarterback, and that will be Brock Purdy in this case. I'm rolling with the Cyclones on the money line. So Rob's got the Cyclones on the money line. I'll take the Red Raiders in the points, similar to the last game we just picked. Central Arkansas travels to Arkansas State, 3:30 ESPN 3. Texas State travels to Troy to finish off our 3:30 slate on ESPN 3. 4 o'clock, Arkansas goes to number 13 Auburn, the SEC network. We're not picking this game this week, but I just want to compliment the Razorbacks. Really played exceptionally well against the Bulldogs last week, played some good defense. I'll get to that game in a minute when we talk about Mississippi State. But Arkansas ends their 20-game win streak. Congrats to the Razorbacks and Sam Pittman. Auburn looks to bounce back from a tough one against Georgia. All right, Pittsburgh, Boston College, 4 p.m. ACC Network. Kansas State goes to TCU, 4 p.m. on Fox. Middle Tennessee State goes to FIU, 4 p.m. ESPNU. And then a couple games on the coast here in Mississippi. The Southern Miss Eagles are hosting Florida Atlantic, FAU, while Ole Miss is set to host Alabama. Both these games, Southern Miss is supposed to play at 4 p.m. Ole Miss is supposed to play at 6 p.m. on ESPN. All these times are Eastern time, of course. And both schools kind of put out that they will they're still monitoring. They're not making any decision on the games yet. Of course, I'm referring to Hurricane Delta, which is supposed to come through. I think it's supposed to make landfall in Louisiana Friday night, Saturday morning sometime. So it's going to come through Mississippi and Louisiana kind of on Saturday during the day, slowly make its way up through kind of the northern part of Mississippi. It looks like it's kind of angling through, but it's really going to – looks like it's going to hit the Louisiana coast pretty hard. It's Category 4 storm right now, I believe. So there's chances this game might get moved, but for now, they've as of Wednesday night here, they haven't changed the kickoff. All right, so you got Alabama going to Ole Miss, minus 24 on the spread, minus 2,000 on the money line for the Tide. The total's at 70. Ole Miss and Southern Miss, like I said, they're respectively monitoring the conditions ahead of Saturday's game. And we will see in the next couple of days. But again, these are games that could be impacted by the weather. But please let this Ole Miss game happen. Figure out a way to make this happen, SEC. I want to see what Lane Kiffin has in store for Saban and the Tide. We're only going to get so many of these battles. And Kiffin took this job to stick it to Alabama as close as he could. So I want to see this happen. I don't expect this to be close at all this year. Ole Miss certainly doesn't have the defense for it, but Kiffin's going to reach deep into his bag of tricks. It's going to be the deepest corners of his playbook to put up some highlights. The Rebels have a talented offense. They come into the game 1-1 after a great overtime win against a tough Kentucky team. Bama squashed A&M last week. They covered easily. It just, again, we talk about that with A&M, disappointing performance for them, but really Bama just showing their dominance still. They cover that easily a week after blowing the late cover against Mizzou. I do think Alabama should cover easily in this one, but Saban's tendency to start subbing late and Kiffin's all-out desperation to stick it to Saban and the Tide are making me go against my mind and bet with my heart in this one as well. I'm going to take Ole Miss to cover the 24 in this one because I like that offense at Ole Miss. I think they can put up enough points to make it interesting. Let's see what Robert has to say. I predict a lot of fireworks in this game coming from some explosive plays on both sides of the ball. The money line for Bama is the ultimate safe play, but the juice is way too high. So I'll be rolling with the over in this one. So Robert will be taking the over of 70 in this one. All right, let's move on with the rest of the day here. Temple at Navy, 6 p.m. CBS Sports Network. East Carolina goes to South Florida, 7 p.m. ESPN Plus. At 7:30 p.m. on ABC, Miami, the number 7 Miami Hurricanes go to number 1 Clemson. And really, before we dive into this, I'm not a Miami fan. I don't particularly like Miami. I respect the program and the history, but they have been absolute garbage since joining the ACC. And it really is the ACC. We've all suffered for it. The ACC has had a lot of tough games to watch. But if Miami could get to the point where they're a top 10 program again, so many of these games are going to become marquee matchups. I mean, you look at this trip to Clemson, number 1 Clemson playing number 7 Miami. You got to think that the Canes can compete a little bit in this one on the surface. You like what they're doing to Eric King and stuff. but I'm not sure they have the depth to get there just yet. So I hope it's exciting to see Miami in this spot because you want to see them. They have a high profile. You want to see a team with a high profile get some players and play some good football so we can see more good matchups like this in the ACC. The ACC is desperately missing a rival for Clemson right now. And I'm not promoting Miami to that spot just yet, but it would be great to see more games where you see a top 10 Miami playing a top 10 Clemson. And I just think that's great for the ACC. You don't see too many top 10 battles in the ACC in general. So anyway, 7:30 p.m. ABC. Clemson's still a 14-point favorite in this one. All right, so we'll come back to earth after my little rant there. Minus 620 on the money line. The total is at 63. I like this Miami team. I really do. I love that Diaz has finally embraced the up-tempo offense in South Beach there, or I should say Coral Gables. I think this does wonders for the program in the long term. I really do. Rhett Lashley might not be around for a long time, but they'll find the next guy to come in and run that up tempo. So I think Diaz has embraced that because he sees it works now. But what Miami lacks that Clemson possesses is depth. And I'm really talking about up front. I think the Tigers can just roll guys through to the different ability than Miami. And I think they'll wear Miami down in this one. The first few games, though, they've just felt like a cakewalk for the Tigers. No real challengers, just kind of rolling through with not a problem. I know Miami sees itself as a real challenger, and they could be a top challenger in the ACC down the road this season, but they have to prove it to me. I'm not going to believe it on faith and words alone. I need to see it on the field. All right. I get where you can make the argument. This feels like a game that we're talking ourselves into a little bit, though, this year. I want to get excited, but Derek King is going to need to put up points for the Canes. And you could talk yourself into it. Hey, what if a couple Clemson makes a couple turnovers? Like, it could happen. Yeah, but I need to see Miami do it. I'm not going to believe it until I see it with my own eyes with the Hurricanes. So I think the Canes are a good story. I like what they're doing with the offense, but I think they're out of their depth in this one. Clemson pulls away in the second half and covers the 14. Robert, let's see what he has to say about it. The narrative surrounding this game is the U back? I still think it's a little premature at this point to say Miami is back, but transfer quarterback Derek King will keep Miami in it with his mobility and ability to make plays. This probably will be one of the most competitive games that Clemson will have until the college football playoff. So I'm rolling with Miami in the points at plus 14. So Rob's got a little more faith in the Hurricanes than I do. It wouldn't surprise me to see them come out and put together a nice drive early, and maybe they're up 7-0, 10-3, 10-7. I just don't think it lasts. I don't think it lasts. And to answer Robert's question about the U being back, I wish he was here to defend this, but the U is not back till they start competing for national titles again. So yeah, you have to talk about winning this one. And even if they win this one, then you got to turn around and do it again, because those Miami teams deserve more respect than just maybe one upset here or there. So Miami's got a ways to go, I believe, but they get an opportunity to prove something on Saturday. So we'll see how it goes up in Death Valley. All right. Florida State travels to South Bend, face number 5 Notre Dame. 7:30 on NBC. Look, this game's going to be absolute garbage, so I'm not going to talk about it too much, but this is 2 marquee programs. What's the ACC doing? Like, put this game on at noon or 3:30. Why are you putting your 4 marquee programs this season, even though Florida State is not a good football team right now? But why are they putting this in the same time slot? They need to get the TV networks together on that one. I know NBC's got its own contract, but man, it just seems like a missed opportunity here. This seems like it has noon written all over it. So I'm not sure why they didn't do that. But really, I think the betting odds in this one are a little screwy too. I was reading COVID-19 related concerns with Notre Dame. There's a lot of players that have missed practices. Notre Dame, of course, had their game canceled or rescheduled, I should say, with Wake Forest last week. FSU came out flat against Jacksonville State last week. They fell behind 21-7 early before rallying behind Jordan Travis. Looks like they're going to go with him at quarterback going forward. My gut instinct is to take the Noles in the 3 TDs, even though I have no confidence in this team. I don't think this is a great team. But then I have to remind myself The guys wearing the garnet and gold are repping FSU in name only this year. This is not a good team. They struggle along the offensive line badly, and I think the offense is going to be relatively stagnant despite what we saw a little bit of a rally last week from Jordan Travis. I don't really care how many players Notre Dame is missing, in all honesty. I'm a little nervous about giving away 3 full TDs here, but maybe you buy a point, a half a point, point and a half. But, you know, what the hell? Give me the Irish and the uncertainty over what I already know about FSU, because what I've seen from that offense this year, it's not good. It's not good. So Notre Dame minus 21 for me. Rob, let's see what he has to say. Not much to say here. The Seminoles are just flat out bad. Yep. And Ian Book hasn't made a ton of progress at the QB position like many would have thought. I think this game will bring some level of competition, but Notre Dame will win. I'm going to lay the money and hope the under comes in at 51.5. And it's actually gone up to 52 for the record, since Robert sent me that email earlier today. So the total is at 52 on this one. Notre Dame minus 21, minus 1,400 on the money line. And the under, we'll put Rob down for the under at 52 on that one. So I'll take Notre Dame minus 21. He'll take the under at 52. All right. At 7:30, UTEP goes to Louisiana Tech. Marshall goes to Western Kentucky. And Mississippi State goes to Marshall goes to Western Kentucky at 7:30 p.m. 7:30 p.m. Kentucky hosts Mississippi State on the SEC Network. The Wildcats are minus 2 point favorites. They're 2-point favorites, minus 125 in the money line. The total is at 57.5. Look, I know some people were really disappointed with Mississippi State last week. They made a lot of believers in week 1 going down to Death Valley and ripping up LSU. And it was super impressive. I mean, but I think that you got to know the other side. Mike Leach's teams, and if you follow the Cougars at Washington State or the Red Raiders at Texas Tech during the Leach days, you know that they'll drop a couple stinkers every now and then. So they dropped a stinker against Arkansas. It is funny, though, in recent years, when Leach is hot and they're winning, oh, he's a genius. You know, he's got this great system and it's air raid and nobody knows how to stop it. He's been running it for years. It's so simple. He's got the one little card. They'll rave about it. But then, for example, Washington State, when they go play Washington the last few years, the defensive coordinator, now the head coach at Washington, Jimmy Lake, he's just kind of like owned them. It's just knocked it down. They've had some bad games against some good Washington teams. I happen to think that Washington is probably more talented than Washington State. That probably has something to do with the dominance the Huskies had over the Cougars. But, you know, did LSU have more talent than Mississippi State? You might say no, because they threw for 623 yards, but I think recruiting publications would tell you otherwise. So Mike Leach knows how to win. He knows how to bounce back. He's not a guy, I don't think he gets too emotionally high or too emotionally low. I think he's a pretty steady dude. He's fine. Sometimes your teams just don't execute. I credit Arkansas for a good game plan last week, making plays to win. They had a pick 6. They had 3 interceptions. That's why Arkansas won. You know, Mississippi State didn't give up particularly much to that Arkansas offense last week. The defense at Arkansas played well, and the offense for Mississippi State didn't execute as well as they did against LSU. If they come out and they have that LSU type of execution against Kentucky, they'll be fine. They'll take the game. They'll win. But Kentucky can tell you a thing or two about execution as well. They blew a game late against Auburn due to 2 critical turnovers. You know, they didn't get into an end zone on a goal line situation. They did it last week against Ole Miss too, where they didn't get in on a goal line situation. But a missed extra point overtime cost Kentucky a shot at, you know, pushing the game to the second overtime against Ole Miss. Ole Miss ends up winning in a 42-41 classic in Lexington. I was impressed with the Kentucky offense, though. Let's take some positives away from them. They kept pace with the high-octane Ole Miss offense. I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting them to slow the game down, run the ball, play good defense, but they went toe-to-toe in a shootout. So gives me confidence that the Cats can go to the shootout if needed. Quarterback Terry Wilson looked pretty good last week against Ole Miss. It might be needed again here against Mississippi State. I think Kentucky bounces back and gets the win, but I'm not confident enough to go with that. So I'll just take the over at 57.5 here. Kentucky, Mississippi State on the over at 57.5. All right, there's one other game on Saturday night. Charlotte at North Texas, 8 p.m. ESPNU. And then there was a game that was scheduled for Saturday, Coastal Carolina at number 23, Louisiana. Solid Sunbelt matchup, but that is being impacted, of course, by Hurricane Delta. That's going to be moved to next Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. on ESPN. And just all types of movement this year. 2020, people are used to changing things around. Don't think that's going to affect the players too much in that one. Hope everyone stays safe out on the Gulf Coast. We definitely wish you the best. Welcome to the NFL section of this week's Picks podcast. We'll give gambling advice on this weekend's NFL games. But first, American Football Stories is brought to you by CoachPaint. CoachPaint's a great tool that allows us to add graphics to player highlight clips, similar to the graphics you see on TV. CoachPaint offers the ability to clearly illustrate video while increasing retention of information in a shorter amount of time. Up your game today with CoachPaint. All right, so in addition to you got hurricane in the Gulf, you got COVID going on. There's just so much going on. There's just so much going on this weekend in the NFL. But the NFL, you're really seeing the COVID concern jump out at you. The Titans especially are having issues with more positive COVID tests. Their game's going to be moved this week. You got a couple games affected on the schedule. The Patriots, once again, will be playing on Monday night. This week, they're hosting Denver. That game's moved to 5 p.m. on ESPN. And the Bills and Titans, we're going to see that game move out to Tuesday at 7 p.m. In addition, the NFL, you're starting to get bye weeks. Detroit and Green Bay are both on bye this week. So lots of movements. Certainly worrisome. I think you're starting to get into a point in the season where you're going to start to see games like it's going to be tougher and tougher to make up some of these games. Tuesday matchup, I know that's already affecting. I believe the Bills are supposed to play next Thursday, and I believe that they pushed that game back. Let me double check here. Yeah, the Bills and Chiefs are scheduled for Thursday. I don't think we have an official announcement on when exactly that's being played yet, but that game's going to be affected as well. So you really, it's early in the season, so it's easy to move one game here, one game there, but it's going to be harder and harder to put this puzzle together as we go. And what I think is going to happen is down the road, you're just going to see games flat out canceled, especially ones that don't. I mean, do we really need to worry about, maybe like the 2-5 Cincinnati Bengals making up a game against the, 1-6 Jets, hypothetically? Like, so I think at some point you're going to see games get flat out canceled. This is not going to be a full 256 game season, but I think if the game's important, let's use the Bills and Patriots, for example, down the road. I think it's going to have matchups that are going to impact the playoff race. You're going to see every effort to make those games up. So some things are not going to be fair. Patriots, hey, we got to take the field without Cam Newton on Monday night. We saw how that went. And some things, it just is what it is, man. It's 2020. Doing the best. I'm thrilled that the NFL is having a season, but this is going to get more and more complicated as we go, especially when we're not playing in a bubble environment. We saw how well that went with the NBA, but just a whole different set of challenges for the NFL. So, but they got the first month done pretty much. We're one quarter through the season. So kudos to the NFL and God bless them for the effort, man. Yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun to have the NFL back. This podcast is unfortunately going out after the Thursday night game with Tampa and Chicago. We'll cover that on Sunday night's podcast. But let's get to the picks for Sunday. All right, so we got 1 o'clock. Carolina goes to Atlanta. The Falcons are 2-point favorite, minus 130 on the money line, and the total is at 54. Robert likes Atlanta on the money line on this one. I like Carolina. I said I've been tired of underestimating them. I've underestimated them 4 times this season. They come out, they continue to look good. I especially like Teddy Bridgewater in that fit with Joe Brady. They're just they're under the radar, solid team. They're missing some pieces overall, but I think that maybe we talked about it in the last episode, the McCaffrey absence might be a little blessing in disguise for the Panthers. Not that you ever want to miss Christian McCaffrey, but in the sense that you got a new coaching staff that's still getting a feel, a new quarterback that's still getting a feel for these guys. They didn't have a full offseason. You get to really kind of see what else you got. And you kind of forced to see that, rather than if you got McCaffrey, you're probably putting the ball in his hands 25 times a game. So when McCaffrey comes back, you're just going to be that much more comfortable with the rest of the pieces in the offense. I'll take Carolina on the points on this one. Carolina +2. Robert Scott, Atlanta on the money line. All right, let's move down here. Buffalo, Tennessee, we discussed it will be moved to Tuesday night at 7 p.m. on CBS. And, there's speculation. I just talked about it. Diana Rossini tweeted out earlier this week, the Titans are in a difficult position for many reasons. The Bills play next Thursday night against the Chiefs. Moving the Bills-Titans game to Monday seems impossible with this schedule. Canceling or forfeiting may be the only options. We did not hear about that last week with the Steelers. The Steelers-Titans game was just simply moved. But we heard a little bit about canceling and forfeiting games this week. I want to address that because that is something that I think we will end up seeing that. If the Titans were proved to have broken some type of protocol, fair or unfair, the NFL might just say, hey, look, guys, like we can't afford this right now. So if they're proven they were working out when they shouldn't have been, or they had players go out, we saw the Raiders pick up some fines this week at Las Vegas. Darren Waller, through a charity event, they picked up some fines. That is going to be something that I think we will see at some point. There's going to be a team penalized, and they're going to have to forfeit a game. So, again, 2020, we're all doing our best here. Unfortunate, but I think that's the reality we're living in at this moment. So, Bills-Titans move to Tuesday night. I will pick this game, though, because it's in the 1 p.m. time slot originally when we wrote the schedule out here. So, I'll say this. I like Buffalo to win in this one, but I don't have the odds. The odds have not yet released because Vegas isn't touching this yet because they don't know who's playing, who's not. So I do like either way. If they're full strength, give me the Bills in this one. They just look super impressive. So I'd take the Bills on the money line, but we're not going to include that with our picks this week. So I'm going to go to Kansas City, another team that was impacted last week with the Patriots. I think you look at this game and they're playing the Raiders. This is also a game that I could not find on the board, but just to talk about it a little bit without picking it, the Chiefs looked awfully impressive against the Patriots the other night. They showed that they don't have to, go crazy, score 40 points to win games. They could get down and dirty, play some defense. I had a fun time watching that first half. It's interesting whenever you see Pat Mahomes get held down a little bit. What's Belichick doing with that? What are they doing? Like, how are they actually making this happen? They went down with the offense. They really relied heavily on that running game. New England did with the quarterback situation, but I thought you saw a good game plan. I thought it was well played, but Kansas City, they're the Golden State Warriors. They can just pop off at any point, and they got going at some point and they put the game away. So I thought that was a well played game by the Patriots, but the Chiefs are the best for a reason right now. So it was fun to watch the other night. I expect them to take care of business at home against Vegas, though. No spread on this one on Bovada yet, so we are going to skip picking it as well. All right, Arizona traveling New York to play the Jets. The Cardinals are a 7-point favorite, minus 340 on the money line, and the total is at 47. Robert likes the Cardinals -7. I have to agree. The Jets have just showed me absolutely nothing on the offensive side of the ball this year. I thought they played well against Denver, but I'm not sure how good Denver is. Arizona's had a couple of weeks where they played some coin flip games. They end up losing. They looked pretty ugly against Carolina last week. I expect Kyler Murray and the Cardinals to bounce back in a big way in this one. I don't think this is close. Cardinals -7, easy pick for me right there. All right, the Eagles finally got off their losing streak. They got on the board with the win. And guess what? You're in first place in the NFC East. Not too shabby, Philly. Like, you're going to be fine. Just hang in there, win a few games. I don't know if 7-9 is going to make it the playoffs out of this division here, but it's sure looking like a possibility because I think it's going to end up coming down to Philly and Dallas in the East. Both teams have one win. So I think you're sitting in good shape. If you can beat Pittsburgh here, that's going to be a huge win. That's going to be a huge win. I don't know if it's going to happen, though. The Steelers are 7-point favorite, minus 330 on the money line, and the total is at 44. Rob likes the Steelers on the money line. I think the Eagles, though, I think they're maybe starting to figure some things out. I think they need a little confidence boost last week. They needed to get on the winning side, but they should have taken care of the Redskins in week 1. They've battled in every game. None of their games have been like they started badly against the Rams, but this is not a bad football team. They're going to be in the playoff fight. I think a 7-point spread's a little high. I think the Eagles can even show up and win this game. So I like the totals only at 44. Give me the over at 44 for Philly and Pitt in this one. So I'm gonna take the over on that one. All right, and like I said, Rob likes the Steelers on the money line. The LA Rams travel to Washington. The Rams are a 7.5-point favorite, minus 380 on the money line, and the total is at 45. Robert likes the Rams with the spread. I don't know. Traveling east, it already makes me nervous for 1 p.m. kickoff. Washington this week decides to bench their first-round draft pick, Dwayne Haskins. I don't know if there's a message being sent to him. I don't really understand the move entirely. I'm a big Dwayne Haskins fan. I think he was an excellent pick coming out of Ohio State. Unfortunately, Washington just not the most stable franchise to give the guy an awesome opportunity. But you're going to roll out Kyle Allen this week, who Ron Rivera has some trust in from their days in Carolina. But why mess with the kid's head? Maybe I don't know. Maybe his head's too big and he's not listening to them. Maybe Dwayne Haskins, we have been talking about, he has been mistake prone. So maybe this is a message to the kid that, hey, you're going to listen to us or you're going to sit on the bench. You're not above getting benched. So this could be a 1-game message. We could see Haskins in by halftime, maybe if Allen struggles. But we saw Allen play decent at times in Carolina. So maybe he can hold the job for at least a few weeks. But we know Ron Rivera trusts him. I understand what they're doing. I think the Redskins have been a well-coached football team this year overall. I think they're making more with less out of the talent they have on this roster here. But, man, I really don't like messing with the head of a young quarterback like that. Not that he's so mentally weak that he can't handle a benching, but, like, I just why not invest in the guy? You're not a great team anyway this year. Just invest in that quarterback. So I don't love the decision to bench him, but there might be a reason behind that. The Rams, like I said, 7.5-point favorite, minus 380 on the money line. Rob likes the Rams to cover in this one. I don't trust the total. I don't trust the Rams to cover, though, because I think Washington, the one thing they've been doing is they've been a real scrappy football team throughout not to actually use their mascot, the football team, but they've been real scrappy throughout this season. I've been impressed with them overall. So I don't really trust LA with that number right now. I'm going to just take the Rams on the money line because I think the Rams can get the win. They've proven, especially when you're playing good teams, they put a little doubt in my mind after that Giants game last week with these big numbers. So going over 7 points, I don't know right now. So I'm gonna take the Rams on the money line. All right, let's move on to Cincy and Baltimore. We're sticking in the 1 p.m. time slot. The Ravens, 13-point favorites over Joe Burrow's Bengals, minus 900 on the money line. The over-under's at 51. Whew. That number's too big for me. Robert likes the Ravens on the money line. You're not, as Robert tends to say, the juice. You're not getting a lot of juice for your squeeze, though. Minus 900 on the money line. That's probably, it's probably the right pick. But I don't know, man. I think the Bengals have been playing good football, like in terms of what they have, making more with less, like we talked about with Washington. We know they're going to score because Burrow's going to throw for 300 yards. He's been throwing consistently for 300 yards, but the Ravens are among the best in the AFC. I sold some of my Ravens stock after that loss against the Chiefs on Monday night. I'm not hugely invested in them being the Super Bowl favorite out of the AFC, but some people are still looking at them like this 13-point spread would certainly tell you they are. Robert went conservative with Baltimore on the money line. It's kind of what I'm feeling I should do, but because Burrow has kept the Bengals in games, I'm going to show a little confidence here in the Bengals. I'm going to go plus 13. That's a lot of points to give Joe Burrow. I'm going to go Cincinnati plus 13. Let's move on to Houston Texans. The Texans, big week in Houston this week. They fired Bill O'Brien, the head coach and GM for a long time. I get it. Yeah, I get it. But man, like Bill O'Brien I made an argument. People might not love this argument, but is he one of the more underrated coaches in the NFL? I mean, he was frustrating at times, and Houston felt like they just never got over that hump. And I understand the DeAndre Hopkins move. I'm not really praising him much as a GM. I thought he made some odd moves as a GM. He certainly seemed like a guy that had personality clashes with the locker room. Strong personality. We got a little dose of that on Hard Knocks, but Houston has been a contender in the AFC South since he's been there. They've won a lot of AFC South titles. It's almost like Marvin Lewis in Cincinnati a little bit, where it was just like a good, steady team, but you never really looked at them as taking that jump to elite. But the difference between the Texans and Bengals during those Marvin Lewis years is you have a guy named Deshaun Watson who people view as an elite NFL quarterback. And if you don't view him as the elite quarterback and you're going, no, I don't. What? Okay. You know what? He's really close. He's really close to that level. Or if you don't view him as an elite quarterback, then you probably think he should be. Whatever's holding him back, he should be. And maybe Bill O'Brien is what was holding him back. That's what the Texans are going with that theory. I don't happen to buy that. I think the Texans are just kind of off to a rough start this year in terms of the scheduling department. I'm not sure like what type of start they're 100% expecting to get off to, but when you play at the Chiefs versus the Ravens, at the Steelers and versus the Vikings, I mean, did you think you were going 4-0 Houston? What's the expectation there? So 0-4, it's certainly frustrating. And the problem is they really weren't super competitive in any of these games. I mean, you saw the Steelers. Oh, well, we played them well in the first half. Yeah, you got shut out in the second half, though. Yeah, there was ugly parts to all these games. I think Houston's just a franchise. I think it was more of I don't think O'Brien got fired because there was any real issue in terms of maybe his message that you hear about coaches sticking around too long and maybe their message gets a little stale. And I think that's maybe what we're seeing here in Houston. Unfortunate though, because I sit here, they're playing the Jacksonville Jaguars. I've admitted that I am a longtime Jacksonville Jaguars fan, and I would kill for the run the Texans have had over the last 10 years. They've been playing some good football down in Houston under Bill O'Brien. O'Brien definitely going to be a rehire at some point, I think, in the NFL. So adios to Bill O'Brien in Houston. I want to say Romeo Crennel. I believe Romeo Crennel is taking over down there, but O'Brien should be back in the head coaching circles within probably in the next 2 or 3 years. All right. Robert's going to take the Jaguars +6 in this one. The Texans are a 6-point favorite, -275 on the money line, and the over under is at 54. I don't like this game. I don't like picking this game. I don't know what Houston's going to come out with. I understand why Robert would go with the Jaguars +6. I really do. I think that has a good chance to cover, but I think we're going to see some different game plans and different things out of Houston that we haven't seen yet this season. So for that reason, I do like both of these offenses. I know the Jaguars defense is absolutely horrendous this year. Very tough to watch. And I know the Texans got a man named Deshaun Watson. They're going to be able to put up some points. But Gardner Minshew, he's not afraid of putting up some points either. I think we're going to see a shootout here. 54 at that total. I like the over on that. I will take the over of 54 in Jacks versus Houston. Good luck to the new Texans staff going forward. All right. Miami at San Francisco, the 4:05 time slot. This could be an interesting one. The Dolphins are 9-point dogs. San Francisco, people still having faith in those 49ers, man. Minus 430 on the money line. The over-under's at 51.5. I gotta maybe do a little more research on Miami's record out on the West Coast, but what has Miami showed this year that they deserve to be a 9-point dog against anybody? Like this is not the terrible Dolphins team we watched last year. This is a much improved team. I think the defense is playing better, and the offense can keep it interesting. And even when they've fallen behind, they'll pick up some scores late. I think last week the Seahawks covered by a half a point against them. So you got them traveling west, though. Maybe that's what they're giving them a hard. Maybe that's what Vegas is seeing. I definitely like the Niners to win the game. I think it'd be surprising if the Dolphins end up winning this one. But, man, I love Miami and the points in this one. I love Miami and the points. So I will get Robert's pick off air on this one. He didn't send me a pick on that one, but I'll get his pick off air and I'll put it on our website, AmericanFootballStories.com. Fitzpatrick has played very well, though. I like what the offense is doing in Miami. They're playing not very well in the sense that it's an elite performance, but just he's doing what the Dolphins need him to do. And I think we've talked about it, as long as he can keep Tua on the bench, I think Miami's going to be thrilled this year to let their rookie quarterback learn and develop as long as they stay competitive. So I like the Dolphins +9 in this one. All right, Indianapolis at Cleveland. I've been banging the playoff drum for the Browns this year. I thought we were a year early last year. And this team has too much talent to ignore. Good win in Dallas last Saturday. Dallas is not an awesome team. They're a good team, not a great team. I think you'll see the record play out. They've had some. I know they're 1-3 right now in Dallas, but I think you'll see that record start even out a bit. But they certainly got an offense, and Cleveland went down there and they had to put an offensive show of their own on to win the game. And they let Dallas creep back in, but with Dak in that offense, they're certainly capable of doing so. So I'm not going to fault Cleveland. I think Cleveland people were paying attention to the Browns last week, and with the spotlight on them, they went to work on the ground. They ran the football, and you're losing Nick Chubb for the season, but Dearness Johnson steps in and has no problem filling in. So I think obviously you're going to miss Nick Chubb, but with Kareem Hunt, Dearness Johnson, I think the Browns are starting to have an identity. They played some good defense in the first half against the Cowboys. And I think with running the football, they're not asking Baker Mayfield to do too much, so that when he does get his opportunities, he's doing well. So I think if you make the Colts stop the run, which the Colts have certainly proved capable of doing, you got a much better defense here in Indianapolis this week than you faced with Dallas. If you make the Colts stop the run, you can have an interesting performance this one. So Rob's actually on board this week. He's not been a Browns guy. He's picking the Browns on the money line. But you got Indy's a 1.5 point favorite, -125 on the money line, and the total is at 47. I'm going to go against myself this week. I think the Colts have been playing some good football. I'm going to take the Colts and the points at Indianapolis -1.5 in this one. I do believe in Cleveland. I just think the Indy might be a better team. That's all. So I think Indy's definitely going to be in the playoff race. I think they're going to be better. I think they're just a better team. But hey, if the Brownies win this one, you could start to change that pencil for the playoffs into a pen. It's you could start really. They're going to be looking very good for a wild card spot. All right, the Giants, the G-men, they travel to Dallas to play the Cowboys. Cowboys got to get this one. 425 CBS. No excuses. Get this one. This should be easy business here. Dallas is 10-point favorite. And while some might hesitate to take those points at -10, I know Robert doesn't. Robert likes the Cowboys at -10. After the Rams performance last week, some might be hesitant to bet against the Giants with that big of a spread. I'm not at all. I think the Cowboys are a very good team. I think their offense is going to score. I don't think their defense is great, but I think that offense is going to outpace the Giants. I think we're looking at something like a 35-17 type of game. So I don't think this is going to be too close. Dallas gets its second win of the season. And, hey, maybe they'll be in first place in the NFC East by the end of Sunday. We'll see, despite the rough start. Minnesota goes to Seattle. 8:20 on NBC. The Vikings, rough start for the season for them too. They finally get their first win at Houston last week. Good for the Vikings. But hey, congratulations, you get to go to Seattle now. Not liking it. Not liking this trip here. Not liking this matchup for the Vikes. The defense has been struggling in some big moments this year. The Seahawks are 7-point favorites, minus 340 on the money line, and the total is at 57.5. Robert is being a Vikings homer and taking the Seahawks on the money line. He doesn't like the Seahawks to cover. I think Seattle's a much better football team this year. I'm going to take the Seahawks -7. I think they have no problem covering this number at home. Seattle -7. All right, let's go to the Monday night matchups. You got Denver at New England. We haven't seen a spread for that due to COVID. We don't know who's playing. Fair enough. So we'll keep that game off the board. The Chargers go to New Orleans on Monday night. Now, the last I saw, they were talking about evacuating. The Saints were considering evacuating and moving the game to Indianapolis for week 5. But I have not received any confirmation that has happened yet. I'm gonna double check one more time here. Delta Saints Indy. Double checking one more time. Yeah, there's no update on that. So they're gonna stay in New Orleans, it looks like, for this game. We've heard no new information. Monday night game, 8:15. I know we saw LSU. We talked about on the college side. LSU moved their game to Missouri with the Tigers this week, but the Saints playing indoors, no fans anyway, kind of makes sense. So you got the Saints 8-point favorites over the Chargers, -380 on the money line. The total's at 51. Robert likes the Saints on the money line. This is a big number for a Chargers team that went into Tampa and played the Bucs head up. I mean, of course, we saw the Bucs lose to Chicago on Thursday night. We saw what happened there. But I think this Chargers team with Justin Herbert, they've been playing pretty well. I don't even know if I want to pick the Saints straight up in this one. I definitely think that's not a bad pick, but the over-under is sitting at 51. The total's at 51. I like the over. I like the over in this one at 51. I think that's a number that both of these teams can get to. And it wouldn't surprise me at all to see a shootout on Monday night. All right. So that is our week. We covered, and then, of course, the Bills and Titans, which I covered earlier. They're playing Tuesday night at 7 p.m. So we're going to end the episode here with the Did You Know question of the week. And the Did You Know question of the week brought to you by Coach Paint. When was the last time an NFL regular season game was flat out canceled? And I'm talking about canceled, not postponed. And we'll come back with that answer after break. American Football Stories is brought to you by Coach Paint. Coach Paint is a great tool that allows us to add graphics to player highlight clips similar to graphics you see on TV. Coach Paint offers the ability to clearly tell a straight video while increasing retention of information in a shorter amount of time. Up your game with Coach Paint today. Okay, before break, the Did You Know question of the week. When was the last time an NFL regular season game was flat out canceled, not postponed? And the answer is week 3 of the 1987 season was canceled due to a labor dispute. They did postpone the games due to 9/11, but they made up all those games later on this season. So in week 3 of the 1987 season was the last time an NFL regular season game was flat out canceled and not postponed. All right, we appreciate you listening to this episode of American Football Stories. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Right now, we're down on Spotify, actually. I'm trying to get that back up, but that's the plan to get there. You can find us eventually on Spotify, but we are on Apple Podcasts and YouTube. Please subscribe and rate us 5 stars. Follow us on Twitter at American FB Story, and check out our website, AmericanFootballStories.com. We appreciate you listening. My name is Nick Knutson. My co-host is Robert Parker III. He'll be back next week, and we thank you.
You play to win the game. Hello? You play to win the game. You don't play to just play it. That's the great thing about sports. You play to win. And I don't care if you don't have any wins. You go play to win. When you start telling me it doesn't matter, then retire. Get out. Because it matters.
I hope there's Bigfoot. I don't think there is. The reason I don't think there is because we found bones of dinosaurs and everything else, but we haven't found bones that I've heard of Bigfoot.
I'm very upset. We shouldn't have been in the ball game with fast field goal. The coach had sent him in. We shouldn't have sent him in. That's a dang coaching mistake. The kids are playing their tail off, and the coaches are screwing it up.
We just got to stop that little inside trap. You know, the option didn't hurt us much. We played pretty hard. We just got to stop that inside thing. Offensively, we kind of sputtered around, got the ball in the end zone. You know, defensively, we got to get out off the field on that 2-minute drive.
Injuries to your offensive line. What do you do in the second half?
Oh, we're just going to play. We just got to keep playing.
Thank you, Coach.
He has a magnificent personality, I'll tell you.
We receive a lot of mail during the course of the season, and a lot of it's good mail, a lot of it's bad. And one of the
I would say that most of it is good, though, isn't it, Bill?
Yeah, I think so.
I'd say 95 to 98% of the mail we get is always good.
But the one question that keeps coming up where Woody Hayes' name is involved, they say you're a man of no mercy. And yet,
you know, frankly, I don't care much what they think.